Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
Someone with every advantage can still end up a serial killer. It emphasizes the importance of setting appropriate boundaries and encouraging healthy relationships during childhood, as these experiences can significantly impact an individual's development and future behavior.
Because you edited it in, but it occurs to me, I wonder what they're saying to each other right there.
They're probably saying, I just took a poo.
Either that or let's get it on.
No, it could be something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I am Mike Brown. Welcome to Dark Poutine.
And I'm Matthew. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Matthew. How are you today? Besides frustrated with technology.
Technology and numbers always fail me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you seem to get pretty wound up.
Mike saw me blowing a gasket.
I just kind of sit back and let it happen. And
update your Chrome browser in order to do this. Yeah. I'm not on Chrome!
I'm just here doing my thing.
Oh, gosh.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadians chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
In the first two episodes of our Shadows of Deception series, we delved into the abysmal depths of depravity exhibited by Dellen Millard and Mark Smich through the heinous murders of Tim Bosma and Laura Babcock. With Millard and Smich already incarcerated for their previous atrocities, a new investigation was launched into the 2012 death of Millard's father, Wayne, a wealthy aviation businessman. Initially presumed to be a suicide, the circumstances surrounding the demise came under intense scrutiny after his son's sensational arrest for the Bosma and Babcock murders. After their investigations, authorities arrested Dellen Millard and charged him with the first-degree murder of his father. This shocking twist cast a sinister shadow over the already grim narrative, painting Dellen Millard as a far more depraved criminal than initially realized. One willing to extinguish even the life of his own flesh and blood. It appears that Dellen Millard is a cold-blooded individual who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. This is Dark Poutine episode 319, Shadows of Deception Part 3, The Murder of Wayne Millard. On the evening of November 30th, 2012, after a phone call from her son Dellen, Madeline Burns Millard raced to 5 Maplegate Court in Etobicoke, the home of her ex-husband and Dellen's father, Wayne Millard. Dellen called at 5:56 p.m. and told Madeline he'd gone to check on Wayne after not hearing from him all day and discovered him unresponsive in a pool of blood lying on his bed. Dellen said he didn't touch Wayne and called his mother right away. Madeline called 911 shortly after she arrived. Paramedics arrived at the Millard residence around 7 p.m. after receiving the call. They were met by Dellen and Madeline. Both seemed distraught. In the bedroom, they found Wayne lying on his side on the bed with blood coming from his eye. The first police officers, including Sergeant Nimmo, arrived shortly after. The paramedics initially believed Wayne had died of cardiac arrest that had burst the blood vessels in his eye. However, when Nimmo entered with the paramedic, he saw Wayne lying on his left side, hand under his cheek, with blood all over the pillow and the side of the bed. It was something else. At 8:30 p.m., the coroner, Dr. Evans, arrived. Bloodstains indicated he'd been in that position for a while. Evans could see blood coming from his left eye and nose when he moved beside the bed. While examining the blood trail, Evans noticed a bag between the bed and dresser. Moving it slightly, he discovered a gun lying on the bag. He alerted the officers, who then called detectives and forensics to the scene. There are differing accounts of whether the gun was visible, moved, or how the blankets and sheets were initially positioned on the body before forensics arrived to photograph the scene at around 11:25 p.m. But the key details were Wayne Millard deceased in his bedroom, a gun found near his body, and evidence of bloodshed. Dr. Evans examined Wayne Millard's body. He noticed that Wayne was wearing shorts, socks, and a t-shirt. Evans observed bleeding from Millard's left eye and nostrils, but no other injuries. The left eye was absent. Evans assumed the wound was a gunshot, as he saw no exit wound. He noted what appeared to be soot on the pillow where Millard was lying, and he believed there was soot on Millard's left hand. When he first examined the body around 9 p.m., there was full lividity, pooling of the blood, in some areas, and blanching, lack of lividity, in others. This suggested that the death had occurred more than 6 to 8 hours before the body was found, as lividity is typically fixed after that time. Dr. Evans also noticed that rigor mortis, stiffening of the body, was complete, usually occurring 18 to 20 hours after death. However, the exact timing of when he examined the body remained unclear due to contradictory statements about the time of the examination. Other evidence provided additional clues. Millard's girlfriend, Janet Campbell, stated she ended her phone call with him around 3 a.m. on November 29th. Wayne Millard also emailed an employee at 2:50 a.m. that same morning. The housekeeper, Dina Colangelo, arrived at the house between 8 and 8:30 a.m. on November 29th and found Millard's breakfast untouched, suggesting he had died sometime before then, and she didn't enter his bedroom, so she had no idea that he had passed.
Well, there's an interesting clue right there. I mean, how many people would make their breakfast and then decide to end their own life?
This doesn't indicate who made the breakfast. Maybe it was pre-made for him and he just hadn't touched it either way.
That's true. My mom's husband gets her breakfast already. She has to pour milk into it, but gets it all set out and ready for her in the morning. So.
There you go. So that's probably exactly what it was.
Okay.
Considering all the evidence, it was concluded that Wayne Millard likely died sometime after 3 a.m. and before 5:56 p.m. when Dellen called his mother on November 29th. The housekeeper's presence in the morning made it more probable that he died before 8:30 a.m., although it was still possible he died later in the day. Photographs were taken of Wayne Millard's head and upper body, the wound to his eye, the pillow with the soot-like stain, and the position of his body in the blankets on the bed. The police did not seize the pillow, take any measurements related to it, or examine the bag the firearm was resting on. They also did not seize the blankets from the bed. Later, the police took additional photographs and swabs from the gun for DNA testing. An expert, Detective Constable Sutherland, later said that the revolver would have discharged gunshot residue, GSR, from the muzzle and cylinder gap, which would likely have been visible. A photograph showed an apparent blood stain on a blanket near the foot of the bed, though all other blood was observed around Wayne Millard's head.
I wonder why there would be a blood stain at the foot of the bed.
Well, not to get too graphic, but if somebody...
But I guess if somebody gets shot, blood's going to go where blood goes.
Exactly.
Right?
It ejects.
I was just wondering if there's a clue there.
Yeah. Forensic pathologist Dr. Jayantha Harath conducted a thorough autopsy on Wayne Millard's body. It was determined that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head. The entrance wound was located on the medial angle of Mr. Millard's left eye, or close to his nose. The upper and lower eyelids were lacerated, suggesting the eye was closed when the shot was fired. Dr. Harath observed an oval-shaped deposit of soot around the entrance wound, indicating the gun was either partially touching Millard's eye or within 1 centimeter of it when fired. The bullet passed through the eye and into the brain, crossing the midline and ending up in the right parietal lobe. The bullet was recovered and appeared deformed at the tip. In addition, Dr. Harath noted abrasions on the back of Millard's right forearm and the front of his left upper arm, which could have been caused by partially burnt gunpowder. The lividity pattern on the body was consistent with Millard being in the position shown in the crime scene photographs, lying on his left side with his right hand under the left side of his face and his left arm extended. The coroner, Dr. Evans, concluded that Wayne Millard's death was suicide based on his observations at the scene and the autopsy and toxicology findings. The physical evidence suggests the crime scene was distributed by the first responders. The blankets on the bed appear to have been moved multiple times, and the bag containing the firearm was moved before the forensic investigators arrived. So that could be how the blood stain got there, too.
Yeah, and Mike, I think on this show, or at least on shows that I've seen, is every once in a while you can see an autopsy report and go, how did you conclude that? Right.
Yeah.
But here, like, I think Dr. Evans is probably good at his job. And if there's a disturbed scene, and just sort of the way this was all done, it would be very difficult to come to any other conclusion at this point.
Right.
With the information that they have. Right.
Exactly. The soot marks on the pillow, Millard's right hand, and around the gunshot wound were likely gunshot residue dispersed from the revolver's muzzle and cylinder gap. The lack of visible GSR on Millard's left hand does not necessarily mean none was present before the scene was disrupted. The overall physical evidence in Millard's injuries were consistent with two possible scenarios. Either he was shot by someone else while sleeping, or he inflicted the wound himself by pulling the trigger with his left hand while lying on his side. However, the latter position would have been quite awkward. In summary, the pathology findings and analysis of the physical evidence provide important insights into the circumstances surrounding Wayne Millard's death. However, the precise sequence of events remains unclear due to the disturbance of the crime scene. As Wayne Millard's son, Dellen, was the one who discovered the body, police interviewed him that evening. According to Dellen Millard, when he arrived at the house, he went to his bedroom to get a sweater. He then noticed that his father, Wayne, was still in bed. He went in to check on his father and saw that he was dead, with blood where it was found. Dellen Millard reiterated that he did not touch his father's body at all. Instead, he immediately phoned his mother to inform her of his discovery. Sergeant Nimmo told Dellen about the gun they discovered next to Wayne's body. Dellen asked if it was a revolver and later told Constable Bevilacqua there might be another gun in a bag in the basement, but he wasn't sure. Dellen said that he had stayed at his friend Mark Smich's house the night before discovering his father's body. He said he didn't think his father had any guns left in the house. Dellen, of course, neglected to tell investigators that the gun found was believed to be the same one purchased by Dellen on July 3, 2012, and linked to the death of Laura Babcock just a day after its purchase.
This guy is outrageously pathological.
Yeah.
Stone cold liar all the way through.
Yeah. I mean, the police had no way of knowing that it was Dellen's firearm at the time because, this was before all the investigations happened.
No, but just the way he just so flagrantly just lies. It's just, it's incredible.
And not only that, he uses the same firearm allegedly, because they couldn't prove how Laura Babcock died, but allegedly he used that same firearm. Just bonkers.
Yeah, but lucky for us, he has bigger balls than brains.
Right. To give some background on Wayne Millard, he came from a family deeply rooted in the Canadian aviation industry. His father, Carl, founded Millard Air, a charter airline, in the 1960s. Wayne grew up immersed in aviation, developing his passion for flying from a young age. As a child, Wayne was exposed to the inner workings of the family business, observing his father's leadership and vision for the country. This upbringing likely instilled in Wayne a strong work ethic and an entrepreneurial spirit that he would apply to his career. Wayne followed in his father's footsteps and became a skilled pilot. He gained extensive experience flying various aircraft from commercial airlines to smaller propeller planes. He'd flown everything from Boeing 747 and 757s to DC-3s and Lockheed L-1011s. Wayne held numerous types of certificates, showcasing his expertise as a master pilot. Soon, Wayne was married and had his own son, Dellen, and starting when Dellen was just a toddler, his dad and grandfather began bringing him along and grooming him with the hopes that one day he'd take over the family business. In 2006, Wayne took over as president of Millard Air after his father's passing. He worked to transform the company from a charter airline into an aircraft maintenance and services business. Wayne had ambitious plans to rebuild Millard Air into a new, thriving enterprise. In addition to his passion for aviation, the sources described Wayne Millard as a patient and stubborn man who admired historical figures like Christ, Gandhi, and Lindbergh. From an early age, Wayne was known as a humanitarian and animal welfare advocate. He supported and organized numerous missions and initiatives on behalf of organizations like the Canadian Flora and Fauna Society, Canadian Wildlife Film Productions, the Sea Shepherd Society, and the Toronto Humane Society. Wayne believed passionately in protecting the environment and animal rights. He sounds like a terrible person.
Yeah, I know you're being sarcastic there.
Right.
Yeah, I saw some news stories about him, and sometimes the stories kind of lean to that he's a super wealthy airline magnate, right?
Well, they owned a lot of property.
But you look at his house, it's a nice house, but it was like, I looked it up, not a huge mansion.
Right.
We aren't talking a guy who inherited billions here, right?
Nope.
Like just looking into him a little bit, he inherited what I would call an ongoing concern that probably took a lot of work on his part to keep it going, right? He wasn't just this sort of like, cigar smoking billionaire, right? Mm-hmm. And he strikes me as a really hardworking guy.
Yeah.
With a passion for what he was doing. And quite frankly, anyone that was involved in animal welfare is a great guy in my books.
Right. And we're talking about Wayne, not Dellen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. It's Wayne's world we're talking about.
Yes. As we mentioned previously, Dellen Millard had a privileged upbringing and followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a pilot at 14, the youngest person to pilot both a helicopter and an airplane on the same day. After Wayne and Dellen's mother, Madeline, divorced, Madeline moved to Kleinburg, Ontario. The divorce was said to have been emotionally devastating for Dellen. In the months before his death, Wayne Millard had started a new relationship with Janet Campbell, a woman he had dated in his teens. The rekindled relationship began with email and phone contact in January 2012, and over the following months they spoke frequently and at length on the phone. In the month before his death, Wayne and Janet met in person at his hangar, his home, and her home. Wayne even spent the night at Janet's place and spoke of leaving some of his belongings there for future visits. In November before his death, Wayne made plans with Janet to celebrate her birthday on December 4th. He booked the day off work and told her he had bought her a card and a present. After his death, Dellen gave Janet the present Wayne had bought, flying lessons. The night before he died, Wayne and Janet spoke on the phone for several hours from around 10:30 on November 28th until 3 a.m. on November 29th. Janet said Wayne seemed fine and normal during their conversation. In his police interview, Dellen Millard acknowledged that his father had a girlfriend named Janet Campbell, and his father had asked Dellen if he would be okay with him dating her. Dellen said he told his father he was fine with the relationship, but only if it didn't create any legal issues.
Yeah, you see right there, legal issues. Essentially, his concern is of
himself
for his inheritance. Seems to trump his father's happiness.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and here we go. This could be entirely the motive for why Wayne was murdered, because Dellen thought, well, if he marries Janet, then I probably won't get as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Janet Campbell, shocked at Wayne's sudden death, described him as excited about his burgeoning business plans, and to her did not appear suicidal. Although he struggled occasionally, She didn't feel that Wayne would ever hurt himself. Dellen told police that his father, quote, had depression in him and, quote, carried some pretty sadness that he never shared and had never reached out for help. Mark Smich's girlfriend, Marlena Meneses, later said that when she spent time at Wayne Millard's house in the months before his death, he would often be in his bedroom, and his appearance suggested he was not always taking care of himself. Janet Campbell said that Wayne Millard had told her that he had a drinking problem. He believed being with her would help him deal with it. Janet said that she could sometimes tell Wayne had been drinking when they spoke on the phone, though he did not drink when they were together. In early 2012, Wayne Millard was dealing with a back problem that left him housebound and bedridden at times. However, by the autumn of 2012, his physical issues were improving. He continued to use a scooter at his business hangar, but could leave his house and walk short distances. In his statement to police, Dellen said that his father was a regular drinker who would consume a 40-ounce bottle of whiskey every 2 weeks before injuring his back. After the injury, Dellen said that his father stopped drinking but had started again in the 2 months before his death, drinking 8 to 10 small bottles of wine a night. The crime scene photographs showed small bottles of wine and an LCBO bag in Millard's home corroborating Dellen's account. The pathologist's findings of liver damage were also consistent with chronic alcohol use. During their final phone call the night before his death, Janet Campbell believed Wayne Millard had consumed some alcohol but wasn't drunk, as he was not slurring his words. The toxicology report showed that Wayne had an 85 milligram of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood at the time of his death. He was beyond the legal limit for driving.
You know what I find really interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Is the amount that you have, be it above or below the legal limit for driving, is often cited, even though there's nothing involving driving in the story.
Like it was me who cited that.
Yeah, but you're not the only one. That's what I mean. You're not the only one. I just find it interesting that that's become sort of a measure for how much alcohol somebody has.
Well, it is. It's a good measure. If someone is sober enough to drive, they're probably sober enough to do all kinds of different things. But if they're not, maybe there's other things going on.
Yeah, but people drink. If you're drinking and not driving, the point is you want to get a little bit drunk.
I guess not for everybody. Not for everybody.
Well, it was for me.
It definitely was for me. As far as business went, there were some struggles there as well. In 2012, Wayne Millard initiated a new maintenance and repair operation, MRO, at the Kitchener-Waterloo Airport, shifting from his previous business, which focused mainly on hangar storage. This new venture, completed just 28 days before his death, aimed to establish a legacy for his son Dellen, though it had yet to secure any contracts or generate revenue. Opinions on Wayne Millard's outlook on this business were mixed. Employees like John Barnes and Philip Woodward described him as optimistic and enthusiastic. At the same time, his girlfriend, Janet Campbell, noted his periodic concerns despite a more positive attitude in the months before his death. In his last conversation with Janet Campbell, supposedly on the night he died, Wayne mentioned that the business was, quote, sucking the life out of him. Financially, Wayne faced considerable stress, having taken out substantial loans, including one against his house, to support the MRO. Barnes and Woodward were cognizant of the business's shaky cash flow and potential to fail. Dellen Millard also acknowledged to the police the significant stress and risk of failure associated with the business, stressing substantial investment made by both him and his father. With all this in mind, even though Wayne Millard had short and long-term plans for his future, on December 1st, 2012, only 2 days after his death, authorities ruled his death a suicide. Sergeant Nemo, one of the investigators on the case, had written in his notebook, "Nothing appeared suspicious." More after a quick break.
On a night cold enough to freeze your bones, a prospector searching for a legendary cursed gold mine vanishes without a trace. I'm Crew Williams, the host of Dead Man's Curse. This season, we retrace the steps of fortune seekers looking for a motherlode worth billions who never came back. Join our quest June 3rd. Search for and follow Dead Man's Curse Volcanic Gold on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Matthew, and we are back. Matthew, thoughts?
You know, I really feel for Wayne. As you know, I've struck out on my own as an entrepreneur and a consultant last year.
Yep.
And so I totally get the pressure, the ups and downs, the day of optimism, then the day of worry, the investment. What if it all goes tits up? But what if it flies? You know, you ride this wave of emotions when you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And nothing you said so far really says to me that he was obviously suicidal.
No.
I think it's kind of typical entrepreneur stuff. Yeah, he drank too much, but a lot of people do, and it doesn't mean you're suicidal, right?
Yeah.
And so I really do think that's a red herring that was kind of planted there.
By Dellen.
Yeah. Right? And I also really feel for Wayne's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So to have been on the phone with him that day and not notice anything wrong and then being told that he killed himself would have caused so much pain for her beyond the fact that her boyfriend was dead. Right?
Yes. Yep.
And even honestly, like we don't talk about his ex-wife very much in here, but I'm a believer that once you've loved somebody, even if it doesn't work out, there's always a little bit of love that remains.
Sure there is.
And I'm sure this would have been really hard on her too, even though she was his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean, you spend how many years with somebody? Of course you care about them.
Yep.
Of course you do. As Dellen Millard had been arrested for Tim Bosma's murder and was the prime suspect in Laura Babcock's disappearance, it was only logical to reopen the investigation into Wayne Millard's death. Quickly, it became apparent that Dellen Millard had killed his father, too. The evidence against Dellen mounted. First, there was the gun. The gun that killed Wayne Millard was identified as a .32 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver with a wooden handle. Dellen Millard had told police that he believed his father had given away his guns years before his death. Bruce Finn, a firearms officer, recalled that in 2010, he went to Wayne Millard's house to pick up guns, including one that had become a prohibited firearm. Wayne Millard had also voluntarily surrendered 4 other guns he no longer wanted, all registered. Detective Sergeant Kenneth James Falconer, a computer forensic analyst, extracted messages from an iPhone linked to Dellen Millard, revealing a conversation with someone identified as Isho on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 2012. The messages discussed a .32 gun, its availability, cost, and rarity, with references to it being prohibited for 30 years. The gun that killed Wayne Millard had .32 long CTC written on its barrel, matching the description in the messages.
Dellen's phone really is the smoking gun.
The smoking gun and the phone are both smoking guns. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The guy's a total idiot. He really is.
He doesn't seem to think so if he defends himself.
But message away on my phone about buying a gun that I'm going to use to kill a couple of people with. What a total moron.
Right. The content of some of these messages was deleted from Dellen's phone. Gee, I wonder who did that. But some were retrieved. Cell tower records indicated that on July 2nd, 2012, the cell phones used by Isho and Dellen Millard moved to converge near a specific location just after 8 p.m. These details, along with the specific gun mentioned in the messages and the proximity of the cell phones on the day of the incident, suggest a connection between Dellen Millard and the gun used to kill his father. Marlena Meneses met Mark Smich early in 2012 and moved in about 2 months later. Their relationship ended in May 2013 when Smich was arrested. Meneses met Dellen Millard a few weeks after moving in with Smich. While dating him, she and Smich often went to Dellen Millard's house, and Dellen Millard frequently came to Smich's house as well. Meneses later told police and testified that she met Isho, a short, chubby man with tattoos from head to toe. She met him a few times, always with Dellen Millard and Mark Smich. When they went to Isho's house, Dellen Millard would drive them there. Meneses recalled seeing Dellen Millard with a Western-looking, wooden-handled gun at Dellen's house, closely matching the description of the one found in Wayne Millard's home after his death. On November 28th and 29th, 2012, what appeared to be Dellen Millard's movements were closely tracked through his phone and credit card activities. Phone records show significant activity late on the night of November 28, 2012, and into the early hours of November 29. At 1:02 a.m. on November 29, one phone was used to call a taxi company from a cell tower in Oakville. Around 6:10 to 6:11 a.m., it connected to a cell tower close to 5 Maplegate Court to call another taxi company. Another phone call was made to Pizza at 12:36 a.m. from Oakville. This was the same location from which Dellen Millard's credit card was used to pay for pizza. Dellen's phone had not been with him. It was with Mark Smich and Marlena Meneses. Dellen was trying to establish an alibi for the time his father was murdered. He's wise enough to know whether or not the police are going to look at his phones, but he's not wise enough to figure out that they're going to figure out that this is an alibi.
Yeah.
Like, he had given his phone to Mark Smich and the credit card. So
again, his phone is still a smoking gun because it actually shows what he's trying to do.
Yep, 100%.
Wow.
Dellen Millard was rearrested in jail and charged with the murder of his father, Wayne Millard, in 2014. Dellen's murder trial on that charge took place in June 2018. The trial was conducted before a judge alone without a jury. The evidence in this case was largely circumstantial. There were some substantial findings, however. DNA analysis of the revolver used to kill Wayne Millard revealed the presence of 2 individuals' DNA. One of these profiles, which could be developed sufficiently for comparison, was found not to match Wayne Millard, but could not exclude Dellen Millard as a source. The probability that this DNA profile would coincidentally match a random individual was calculated to be 1 in 5 quadrillion, suggesting a very high likelihood of a match to Dellen Millard. However, it was also acknowledged by forensic scientist Mr. Brian Peck that DNA can transfer between people and objects indirectly, making it uncertain whether Dellen directly handled the gun or his DNA was transferred in another manner. Despite these uncertainties, the combined evidence, including Dellen Millard's text communications about acquiring a prohibited gun and testimony about his possession of the gun, supported the conclusion that Dellen Millard had acquired and possessed the revolver before his father's death. This comprehensive view of the evidence indicated that Dellen Millard had the gun that killed his father in the months leading up to the incident. In her testimony, Marlena Meneses stated that she'd seen Dellen's gun only one time and could not remember seeing it after. However, in cross-examination, it was revealed that she'd lied under oath numerous times. She also contradicted herself about whether she had fired a similar old-school gun on a previous occasion. Despite concerns about Meneses' credibility, the judge found her testimony about seeing Dellen with the gun to be corroborated by other evidence, including the text messages between Dellen and Isho about that .32 caliber gun and the DNA evidence further linking Dellen to the murder weapon. Judge Forstell's findings against Dellen Millard revolved around the nature of the evidence against him, which was circumstantial. It was emphasized that guilt must be the only reasonable inference from the facts for a conviction on such evidence. The defense suggested that Wayne Millard's death could have been a suicide, which seemed plausible when considering only Wayne's state of mind and the scene of his death in isolation. However, when all evidence was considered together, the suicide theory was deemed not reasonable. The cumulative evidence showed Dellen Millard had purchased and possessed the gun used in his father's death. Just before the killing, he had set up a false alibi by leaving personal items, his phone and credit card, at Mark Smich's house, traveling near his father's home, and later returning to Smich's home. Justice Forstell found no innocent explanation for these actions, particularly the setup of a false alibi on the day Wayne Millard was killed with the gun that Dellen had obtained. The conclusion drawn was that these actions were part of a deliberate plan to murder Wayne Millard. The individual elements of the case, such as the false alibi, Dellen's presence near his father's home, and the use of the gun in the killing, might not individually confirm guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, yet they supported no other reasonable conclusion other than Dellen Millard's guilt.
Yeah, you often, if there's circumstantial evidence in cases, like you have to be very wary, but this circumstantial stuff is just piled on top of each other.
Yes, exactly.
Right? There's piles of it. And to the point where, with this scumbag, there's really no second guessing that he did it, right?
No.
There's just so much. There's so much. Yeah.
Justice Maureen Forrestal concluded that Dellen Millard had intentionally killed his father by shooting him while he slept after planning the act and establishing an alibi. The Crown successfully negated any reasonable alternative explanations for the circumstantial evidence, thereby meeting the burden of proof required for a conviction. Consequently, Dellen Millard was found guilty of first-degree murder, the third one for which he was responsible. In December, Justice Forrestal sentenced the 33-year-old to a third consecutive life sentence, resulting in a total of 75 years in prison before eligibility for parole. If the sentence stands, the decision ensures that Millard will not be eligible for parole until 2088, and he will be 102 years old. This is the longest sentence in Ontario's history, without the possibility of parole exceeding the previous record by 5 years.
And that right there is how you do it. Someone this terrible, I doubt there's any, I am all for rehabilitation.
Sure.
But sometimes, quite frankly, it's clear when there's like somebody this terrible to the core, rehabilitation is just like, no, just lock them up.
Lock them up. Put them under the jail in a little tiny hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Give them food. Give them a TV.
I don't care if people have TVs. Just keep them locked away.
Even in prison, Dellen Millard continued to cause trouble. He was involved with the stabbing of another inmate at Millhaven, the institution at which he'd been incarcerated. He was charged with assault causing bodily harm. The incident occurred in July 2021, and Millard was charged alongside another inmate named Clayton Sumner. The victim, fellow inmate Sean Trites, suffered cuts to his neck, shoulder, and abdomen, requiring 2 surgeries. A doctor testified that Trites' injuries were potentially life-threatening. During the 2023 trial, again representing himself, Millard called several witnesses, including Trites himself, who initially refused to testify but eventually did so. However, the judge placed little faith in the defense witnesses' testimony. Instead, the surveillance video from the prison played a crucial role. It captured the violent portion of the fight, showing that Millard was more than an observer. Although Sumner held the weapon, the video revealed that Millard actively participated by pushing Trites toward Sumner and preventing him from escaping. At one point, Millard even held Trites' shoulder area, allowing Sumner better access to stab him. Justice Jeffrey Griffin emphasized the reliability of the surveillance video, describing it as a silent witness that records events accurately and dispassionately. The video allowed the judge to review critical moments repeatedly, leading to a clear understanding of what happened during the altercation. Despite Dellen Millard's claims, the video evidence showed he did not assist the wounded Trites during the incident.
He really does not understand that technology is not on his side.
Or he's just too arrogant to believe that he's going to be found guilty.
Like, I'm going to completely lie, even though, like, my text messages, the video evidence proves completely the opposite.
Right.
Right? It's just, oh, God.
I'm just grateful that he is where he is. Dellen Millard, of course, was convicted. He received a 1-year sentence for his role in the stabbing. The 12 months was to be served concurrently with the 3 first-degree murder convictions he's already serving consecutively for the 3 killings. Also in March of 2023, Millard appealed his conviction in Tim Bosma's murder. Again representing himself, Dellen Millard addressed the court, quote, "For the weeks and months and years that followed Tim Bosma's killing, the story attracted intense public interest. When I was arrested, the interest quickly shifted and became almost insatiable. I was characterized as the perfect villain. wealthy, privileged, seemingly powerful and advantaged. The public attention was a constant threat to the integrity of the trial. There was no motive to murder, as a motive to commit a homicide for a $24,000 used truck was absurd and defied logic. Why then, on the day of the alleged planned murder, would I be so sloppy and careless? Why show my identity to witnesses and not delete content from my devices or turn off my cell phone?" End quote. The appeal, as well as others by both Millard and Smich in the other murders, have to this point been denied. In June 2023, the families of Tim Bosma and Laura Babcock were outraged after Mark Smich was moved to a medium security prison. They argued that Smich should be serving his life sentence in a maximum security prison. This move came 2 years after Smich's transfer, and it followed recent national coverage over a similar transfer involving serial killer Paul Bernardo. That was later reversed. The families of Smich's victims demanded answers and called for scrutiny of Smich's file. Linda Babcock, the mother of one of Smich's victims, expressed her frustration, quote, "Does anyone really think that someone who has killed several people and never expressed any remorse is going to be a new person after their sentence? Why should you kill 2 people, write a song about it, and then be in a more comfortable location? Come on."
No, and this is outrageous. It really, like, how do people get on parole boards?
Well, this isn't parole board. This is
Who is it?
This is Corrections Canada.
Okay, then how do
So
people
Corrections
get on?
Canada made the decision to move him to minimum security or to medium security.
Okay, so what is Corrections Canada stacked with people from the Green Party or something?
No, it's stacked with people who, like every business, have like targets to meet, and targets to meet for them is ensure people are rehabilitated and stepping down toward release. That is their target.
But
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
it's like, okay, step down people who have done embezzlement, etc. Not people who have like killed people, wrote songs about it, celebrated the fact that they're a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong.
Right. It makes no sense at all. It's like moving Paul Bernardo to medium. But I mean, medium security, really the only difference is the guards aren't armed in medium security, whereas you can potentially be shot trying to escape from maximum security. So I don't know. I really don't. I really don't know. I'm glad I've never had to experience it. But I'm sure that there's other differences. But
do the politicians have any control over this? Because like the current government is getting slammed over these sorts of things.
Well,
right?
that's why Marco Mendocino stepped down. So,
right?
yeah.
They're getting slammed, and like I don't know why it's not more of an election issue.
I have a feeling it will be in the next election. Interestingly, in 2019, Joni E. Johnston, doctor of psychology, wrote about Dellen Millard for Psychology Today. The article suggests that Millard's childhood, including his parents' divorce and rift between his father and uncle, may have contributed to his development into a serial killer. His parents were described as indulgent, allowing Millard to pursue his interests without much guidance or discipline. This upbringing may have fostered a sense of entitlement and a lack of empathy in Millard. The author noted that Millard's life was not as charmed as it may have appeared. His mother's letter in support of him after his convictions portrayed an unrealistic fantasy rather than the reality of who he was. This suggests Millard's outward appearance of privilege and success masked deeper underlying issues. The article concluded that Millard's case highlights how
fine, but blaming the parents, which just starts to sort of step into a little bit.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a bit of like, let's make sure that our parenting is held accountable.
But he's a grown-ass man.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
totally.
Who makes his own decisions. You had a bad childhood. Let me call you a ambulance.
Well, here's the thing. He gets held accountable, and that's it. So, I mean, I've talked about it a couple of times on the show. There was a case in the States where a son goes in, shoots up a school. Parents are also held accountable. I don't know. I'm kind of okay with that, but yeah, this is a bit of a different animal. Yes, call him a wambulance. Wambulance.
The bed chance.
I went to jail because my mommy put me on the toilet seat backwards.
I went to jail because I was spoiled. And that's like the worst, right? It's like he wasn't beaten, he was spoiled. Oh, he was too spoiled and therefore he became a serial killer. Come on. He's just
Oh boy.
There's one person and one person responsible too, and that's those two losers.
Yeah. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 319, Shadows of Deception, Part 3, The Murder of Wayne Millard.
Let us not ever talk about these two again.
Well,
I've had enough of them.
Unless, if somebody gets out while we're still doing the podcast, we'll probably be talking about them again. Or, you know, if Dellen Millard gets involved in something else dumb in jail.
Well, that's very hopeful. We're going to be doing the podcast for 108 years or whatever.
Well, you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
There are big changes in health science. That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week. Alrighty, we have 3 voicemails, so let's get to one here.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Mike. It's Avril from Ontario again. I just wanted to say it's a beautiful day in Ontario. I'm walking my dog right now. And funny story, a few podcasts back, you did one about Evelyn Dick, I think was her name. And my maiden name was Dick. And my family always told this story because one time I think he was my great uncle, his picture was put in the paper mistakenly as her husband that got murdered. And also, I had a relative who was in the hospital giving birth at the same time that this murder was happening, and her name was written on the door, Mrs. Dick, and everyone thought that she was the same Mrs. Dick that did all the murders. Anyways, love your show. You guys are so compassionate and lovely about everything that you do. And I also really appreciate that you don't do a lot of like the child stuff. It's so difficult, right? When you hear those. Anyways, just love your show. My favorite, one of my favorite podcasts, and keep doing what you're doing. I hope to one day be able to support you monetarily. Right now, that's not an option, but I'm looking. Like that's always on my mind. So I love you, and go shit in your hat. Bye.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, April.
Yeah, I'm glad you called again. And she corrected herself. One of her favorite podcasts. So we need to come up. We need to come up and we need to bump ourselves up in her favorites list a little bit.
How could you, Mrs. Dick?
How could you, Mrs. Dick?
So how could you misunderstand that it was the wrong Mrs. Dick?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Oh man. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think Avril does there in Ontario, Matthew? Did we give her a job last time? I don't remember. She'd probably changed jobs since and now is doing something different.
Well, Avril in English is often translated as opening buds of spring,
okay,
as well as born in April. So I think she's a florist.
A florist. Oh, that's very nice. A florist. I like flowers. I like taking pictures of flowers.
I like sniffing them.
Sniffing flowers. Sniffing flowers. Let's listen to another voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. It's Sam from Pennsylvania. This is my second time calling. I'm the one related to Marie-Joseph Corriveau, or La Corriveau of Spooky Legend, that you guys did an episode about a while ago. You said you wanted people from Pennsylvania to call you, so here I am. You are not wrong when you say that people in Pennsylvania do crafty things for work with the Amish presence. That's definitely a thing here. But the Amish influence is kind of concentrated to a specific area or specific areas. So Philly and Pittsburgh, definitely our biggest cities. Mike, when you mentioned those two, but honestly, nothing happens here. People just do all the jobs, all the regular things, and that's pretty much it. But I'm going to give you a couple fun facts since you asked for some, and I promise it wasn't always a boring state, even though it is now. Hanover, Pennsylvania is actually the snack capital, so a bunch of different snack foods started there and are still based in Hanover. Hershey chocolate also started in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and Milton Hershey based the Reese's peanut butter cup on his friend whose last name was Reese. The first baseball stadium was built in Pittsburgh in 1909, I believe. Please don't come at me if I got that year wrong, though. And the first piano built in the United States, which was then the colonies, was built in Philadelphia. And lastly, the first daily newspaper was printed in Philadelphia in 1784. So, yeah, couple fun things that happened from forever ago. Now we're just boring, and we do nothing except regular jobs. I'm a high school English teacher. I definitely don't get to relax as much as people who craft all day or churn butter. We just go to work. We ruin our car tires on the potholes that our taxes don't go to fixing. We pass the adorable cows on the way and then come home. So pretty boring, pretty regular, but that's all I got for you. Thank you guys for doing what you do. You make my Monday mornings. Have a great rest of your day. Mike and Matthew, give Steve some love from me. And that's it. Bye, guys.
Oh,
Fantastic. I learned more about Pennsylvania.
there you go. Yeah. I need to visit one day. I used to be a Philadelphia Flyers fan when Bobby Clark played the Broad Street Bullies.
What sport is that?
It's hockey.
Okay.
And they were the tough guys. And I liked Bobby Clark because he was from Flin Flon, Manitoba, Flin Flon, where my friend, another friend, Art, who you don't know, different Art, is from. And he was also diabetic. So that was a big challenge for him playing hockey professionally. Yeah, I read a book about him when I was a kid.
I wonder if there's a Flin Flon flan, a dish.
There should be if there's not.
Let's make the Flin Flon flan.
Flin Flon flan. Matthew, you know what? We should do a Dark Poutine cookbook. You're a cook. So
I am.
We should throw together a cookbook.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we could do that. I think we could do that. I'll take pictures and stuff and help with all the writing of it, etc.
So when Sam said she is from Pennsylvania, I wrote down Pennsylvania. It just occurred to me that it's sort of like Transylvania. Yeah.
Transylvania.
I've never looked at it that way before. I'm just staring at the word.
Transylvania. We have Amish vampires. Oh no.
So so what did she say? She teaches butter churning, is that what she
I
said?
think so.
And crafts?
Yeah, that was what we gave her.
All I heard was Amish crafty things, churning butter. No.
Yeah. That was the job we gave her last time. I'm
absolutely.
Sure. Anyway. So we have one more voicemail, and it is a goodie. It's from somebody whose mom knew one of the victims of a recent podcast. So let's have a listen.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. My name is Haley. I'm a former Vancouverite living near Lloydminster, Saskatchewan now. And I just finished your episode about Marguerite Telesford. In 2019, I actually wrote in some information about her case. My mom was actually the manager of the Hallmark cards that she worked at, the morning she went missing. And this case obviously devastated my mom. She attended every day of her murder trial. and she just never forgot Marguerite. I was born in 1990, and I knew about Marguerite. So I just wanted to say, at the time when I submitted the suggestion for the episode, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there, and so I really pride you both on your extensive research, and I am a longtime listener and a huge fan, and I love the way that you presented the information, and you talked about Marguerite and who she was and her personality, and you really honored her spirit. So thank you. I sent the episode to my mom, and I can't wait to hear her feedback. But you both, I love the job you do on your show, and it was so great to see her taste being represented. So thank you, and go shit in your hat.
Mm-hmm. How, like my poor ego, how much work did you do on that episode, man?
I did all the research. Mike.
No bullshit. Anyway,
Haley, I just show up and look pretty.
Exactly. You guys have no idea how pretty he looks. He's on camera right now, and I can tell you, he's a pretty looking fella.
With my baby blue shirt.
I love it. I love that. I love your new look. I really do.
Thanks, Haley. Mike, do you remember Haley writing in? Like, that was quite a while ago. And
I do. It was quite some time ago. It was pre-Matthew.
Yeah.
I do remember that. And so Marguerite's, the idea for the case was on the back burner forever, essentially, since 2019, so 5 years. But I had forgotten up until she just mentioned it. I was like, oh, yeah, someone wrote in about that. Well, now we know who it was. Thank you, Haley, for writing in.
And I think, well, you probably put that little bug in his ear, even though he had read that and forgot it. I think we will give you credit for the episode as well.
Yes, 100%. But sometimes I get like 5 or 6 requests for a similar episode.
Okay.
This wasn't that case, but yeah, thanks, Haley. We really appreciate it, and especially the phone call. So, what does Haley do now, Matthew? She says she's in Lloydminster. So,
what's Lloydminster known for?
Well, that's a great question. Well, it's known for Haley.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Haley moved from BC. Did she say Vancouver or just BC?
She said the Vancouver area. Her mom was obviously from lived in Victoria, so the area. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think Haley moved to Saskatchewan to
Alberta, Lloydminster, Alberta.
Oh, was it Alberta?
I don't remember.
I think she said Saskatchewan.
There's 2 Lloydminsters, aren't they?
Yeah.
We should have paid attention, Matthew.
Well, I think I did, and you didn't.
Oh, maybe.
So
yes, she said Saskatchewan. So
yeah.
Anyway, so we'll just say So she's from Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Yeah. So she went there to teach people about what the ocean is.
What the ocean? Because we're so far away from it here, you probably have never seen it.
So she just felt, there's people that are landlocked between 2 other provinces.
Right.
They need to understand the beauty of the ocean, and so she's an oceanographer,
right,
in Saskatchewan.
Well, there you go. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. Well, there you go. Excellent stuff. Yeah, so...
Whew, I did so much research on that episode, Mike.
You did 0. You did 0.
I do a lot of research when I write them.
When you write them, you do.
Right,
yeah.
and also, like, when you send me scripts, I do research.
Yeah, you do sort of like the tangential research.
Yeah.
To talk about stuff, for sure.
Figure out things like when penny loafers were invented.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The important things.
Exactly.
Oh, dear. Anyway, well, let's move on to patrons and Donut Money donors. We have some patrons this week. A new patron alert.
Yay!
From Toronto, Ontario, we have Michelle Hounslow. Michelle Hounslow from Toronto.
Michelle Hounslow.
Yes. So what do you think Michelle does there in Toronto?
I think Michelle is a tailor of fine suits.
A tailor of fine suits. I need one of those.
I think she studied on Savile Row. Do you know what Savile Row is?
That's in the UK, and it's the fancy fashion district.
Well, it's the street where all the
men's shops,
all the bespoke tailors were.
Oh, very nice.
Right. So London had this weird thing where there's one street that was all doctors, and this one was all the bespoke tailors. So
there you go.
So she studied on Savile Row, and she makes bespoke suits in Toronto.
That's very nice.
Yes.
Next up, we have, let me have a look, Megan Horn, and Megan is from Cape Coral, Florida. Cape Coral in Florida.
That's different than Coral Gables, isn't it?
I do believe.
Yeah.
Cape Coral, Florida. It's located in Lee County on the Gulf of Mexico, and it was founded in 1957 and developed as a planned community. So there you go.
She's a taxidermist.
Ooh, what sort of animals are you taxidermying in Florida? Like alligators?
She actually she's bored of them, so she ships in crocodiles.
Oh, okay.
and
bored of alligators, moving on to crocodiles
and ferrets.
Oh, ferrets. Oh.
Yeah,
but she believes in all of these things that she ends up using taxidermy on are things that died of natural causes or old age and willed themselves to her taxidermy business.
You know, I was on a bulldog group the other day,
and
a woman was talking about how she's really thinking about getting her bulldog taxidermed when it goes, and how her family thinks it's really weird.
Yeah.
And then in the comments section, some people are like, yeah, it's weird, but a lot of people are like, oh, I understand. And I don't think I would
do that.
I don't think I could do that. I couldn't have like a stuffed Steve here.
No.
It would just be a little bit like, what's next? You know, like prop up mom afterwards.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to clone Steve.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I would ever clone. I like having someone a little different next time. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Oh, I think it'd be different, but I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I'd like to clone myself so I could get more work done.
Yeah, you mentioned that the other day.
No, seriously. Dude.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I want to clone myself. I think one of me is more than enough.
I would be my most trusted workforce.
Oh, boy. We have another patron, and this one is from Quebec City in Quebec, and her name is Stacy Breton. Stacy Breton from Quebec City, Quebec. I love Quebec City. I really do.
I think, I've never been, so I have this romantic notion of these gorgeous little specialty shops. So I'm just picturing you owning some gorgeous specialty shops of something that's completely useless, but just...
So this is where Stacy works or has a business?
Yeah, but it's beautiful, though. It's like form over function, so it doesn't matter. Sure. It's just so gorgeous that she sells it, right?
There you go.
I don't know what that thing is, but it's
a thing. It's
beautiful, and if you saw it, you'd be like, I really shouldn't waste my money on it, but Stacy's selling it to me, and I need it.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. And we do have, it looks like we have, I'm not sure because this is a week before we did or a week after our podcast. So did we mention Josh Brito episodes 300 and 301 last time?
Well, let's just call him out again.
No, we didn't. So, Joshua Brito, who killed Daniel Levesque, who's Stacey Thur is his mom. People have been messaging me and emailing me, including Stacey, saying that Josh is up to his old tricks. And one of them is Nancy Savage, and she's from Calgary. She says, Dark Poutine podcast episode 301, Joshua Brito is still pulling his old tricks, and it makes me sick to my stomach about what he has pulled recently in Calgary. So I don't know what he's done. I really don't know what he's done, which is interesting.
Or allegedly done.
Allegedly done. But Stacey sent me a sign that had been posted. Let's see. I'll just find it first. So Stacey Thur emailed me a sign that had been posted on a certain premises in Calgary saying, notice, Nathan Mizera, Joshua Brito / Mizera are no longer authorized to be on this property premises. If found on the property premises, please call 911. Thank you, Bowness Lions and Scout Hall. Apparently he was involved with scouting there after having murdered a young man.
Gosh.
Yeah. So who knows what went on to
this was the guy that did on top of them, all these shenanigans around. Yeah.
Saying he was a CSIS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah.
What's the expression? A pheasant, does it change its colors or something?
A leopard doesn't change its spots.
Okay.
Yes. But thank you, Nancy, and everybody else who's contacted me about this particular incident, because arg. Anyway.
So if you live in Calgary area and
in Bowness, yeah.
And you haven't heard of this person, I think on the show notes on the website.
Listen to episodes 300 and 301.
And there's photographs and different names and everything, so you'll be able to recognize him and give a wide berth to this person.
Yes. Do not trust. Do not, yeah, I can't say that, but anyway. Alrighty. So we do have another Donut Money donor, and her name is Heather Campia, and Heather is from Hamilton, Ontario. And she says, just for being a good egg.
Aww.
Yeah. Much appreciated.
I wonder if the Sunshine Records are still there.
Sunshine Records in Hamilton?
Yeah, it's where I worked when I was in college for a while.
Well, there's Sunshine Records here in Langley. There's a couple still around. So it might be. You worked at the mall?
Yeah, downtown. Yeah.
Matthew's looking wistfully out the window away from the microphone.
I still have a scar on my knee for dive tackling a shoplifter.
Oh, why would you ever dive? Like, shoplifter, you let them go.
Oh, no, I chased him through the mall, and I dive tackled him, and we rolled down a set of stairs. It was all really dramatic.
Oh, no. Oh, dear. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Bye.
Bye.
New on Showcase.
They call me the Christchurch Carver.
Based on the international bestseller.
This trademark souvenir.
Can't stop thinking about the apple. Usually he eats it.
I've got a copycat on my hands.
I know who you are, Joe. I know what you do. You have 2 days to find a copycat.
This is way harder to make sense of when you didn't do it.
Dark City, The Cleaner. All new Wednesdays on Showcase. Stream on Stack TV.